Hello there, and welcome back to my rendition of Brooks Row 1888. Now, in this video, all I want to discuss is something I've not really heard discussed before, and that is the possibility that Charles Lechmere was actually the man that disturbed the killer. Now, I want to go through the theory and, basically tear it to pieces, because it's not something I agree with. We're going up to the murder site here. We've got Charles Lechmere. This is at the stage where Robert Paul's come along. Let's go a bit quicker here. Now, the program's give me, I've set it to 3:45. This is what the program's given me in terms of lighting. So how accurate this is, I don't know, because the killers have got the only option is to run off in this direction, up here. Okay, if he knew the area well, a good chance he'll make his escape. Because according to a lot of people, there's a lot of alleyways you can go down, but I'd really like to know for sure myself. But if you stood here and you go to run away, this big building here, it's jutting out into the road, so you have to make your way into the road to see ahead of you, but it's going to be still pretty dark. But anyway, what's been suggested to me, that Charles Lechmere has come along way before Robert Paul has come along, and the killer's been disturbed by his footsteps coming from that direction down there. And as he's got closer, the murderer's basically run off in this direction, and he's ended up with the body being, being covered up. All the wounds that he'd inflicted had been covered up by the clothing. And you have to obviously think, well, why would Jack the Ripper take the trouble to do that before running off? So what's been suggested to me is the killer's worked underneath the clothing and propped up the skirt like a tent, and then when he's heard footsteps in the distance, he's had no choice but to get the hell out of there. But the problem I have with that is he's basically ripped her open. So how would you rip someone open completely blind? And you'd have all your movements restricted by the clothing being over you. So three things: you'd be blind, your movements would be restricted, and you'd be like sweating cobs, you'd be really hot while trying to extract a kidney. Now, I will say he did try to extract a kidney or uterus or whatever because of the way she was ripped open. Otherwise, he would have just stabbed her, wouldn't he? Like whoever murdered Martha Tabram. It may have been the same killer, may not have been. But anyway, as he's pulled out from underneath the skirt because he's been interrupted, because he's been working underneath the skirt, propping it up, as he's pulled out and ran off, the skirts just naturally fell back down vertically over the wounds. And how convenient. I mean, not convenient really, because he wanted the Ripper. We all know that he would have left her in a right mess. Legs open, everything on display, all the guts hanging out. That's how he would have done it. Otherwise, like I say, why not stab him to death if you just wanted to stab? He's actually gouged into her to cut out vital organs. It's the wounds are telltale for that, and the wounds were pretty much the same for Annie Chapman. Only the difference is with that one, he was allowed to, carry on doing it. He completed his task. Took away a kidney and he took away a uterus. My problem with this other theory of a killer other than this man here, Charles Lechmere, that's Robert Paul, is that if you're going to set about doing something as bad as that, cutting her open and knowing just what to do to extract that kidney or whatever, at least you're gonna have to be able to see what you're doing. So that's why I think there's more than enough material, because they did wear big skirts in them days, big dresses and loads of different layers. There's more than enough material to lift that skirt sufficiently so he could get at the bare flesh and stab away, you know. So basically what I'm saying is the killers, this has been suggested to me, the killers basically stabbed her to death, you know, when she was already dead, trying to get out the, you know, internal organs, been startled by Charles Lechmere and then run off in that direction, and the clothing fell back down over the wounds because of the way they were perched over his head, right? But as I've said, I've got a problem with that for those reasons I've stated, you know, the lack of movement, the, you know, restricted movement, being blinded, not having a, you know, not being able to see what you're doing, and being really uncomfortable doing it as well. See, because he's planned this. He's met Polly Nichols probably on Whitechapel Road, or thereabouts. They've made it the way to this location. You know, it must have been on his mind. He must have been going through it. He must have been stressing himself out with thinking, right, now or never, you know what I mean? It gets to this point, nobody about, nice and dark, just enough light to see what he's doing, and it's nice and quiet, so let's do it in at this spot, you know? So basically this killer would have had to have been George Hutchinson. It would have had to have been Joseph Barnett. There's so many. Walter Sickert, even the Elephant Man's been suggested. My God. But all these guys who have done the murder as I've described, I mean, however, you know, far-fetched you think that is, you might agree with it. You might think, well, yeah, it's more than likely that that's what happened. He was disturbed by Lechmere and then ran off. The skirts fell back down over the wounds. But like I said, the three things that you would encounter in that scenario is you can't see what you're doing, you're too hot, and you're restricted in your movements. You know what I mean? But if it wasn't Lechmere, it would have been one of those killers I've mentioned, you know. It's quite a lot. There's, as I've said, there's George Hutchinson, there's David Cohen, there's Aaron Kosminski. It would have had to have been one of them, or somebody we don't even know. See, so this is why I believe firmly that Lechmere was the killer, because he's calmly realised, well, not so much calm, but he's realised that it's the fight scenario has to take place here, not the flight. You know, it's inbuilt, as Edward Stowe would say, it's inbuilt into his psyche. He's not going to, you know, run off and risk getting caught or being seen, being recognised. He's covered them wounds up, possibly over the throat as well. Right now I'm showing a dead body of Polly Nichols, and I don't know if you can see that, but she's actually got blood on her throat. Now, it was suggested by Krista Holmgren, and I go with this theory, that not only were the wounds on the abdomen covered up, but the throat wounds were covered up as well. You know, he did a proper job on her, Charles Lechmere, and in order to, you know, make sure that Robert Paul didn't suspect anything, he's made her look as neat and tidy as possible. It just looks basically like a woman drunk, passed out. But saying that, I do believe the woman's eyes were wide open. What do you think of the theory that another killer was disturbed by that man there, Charles Lechmere? Or do you think Lechmere did it? Or Lechmere done it? You know, I've been wanting to do this video for a while, just to showcase the little model I've made in Unreal Engine. I know it's not perfect, but it's the atmosphere is what I'm after, you know. And trying to picture the scene of the crime back in 1888 at 3:45 in the morning. That's when this is set for. So, do you think Lechmere did it or another killer? I don't think so. But that's not to say I think Lechmere did the others. It's pretty likely though, because Chapman was murdered in the same way. The only difference was she was able to be, that murder was, he was able to carry it out basically. So, what do you think? Join the comment section down below and let's have some feedback. And I don't know if I can do any more videos on Jack the Ripper because of the nature of my channel, but I just have to get all this off my chest because I'm fascinated by it, and I'm fascinated, I should say, because of that man there, Charles Alan Lechmere, born 1849 and died in 1920. Now, one thing I will say before the video finishes is this man, right, the old subject of him being called Cross. In the 1861 census, when he was on the census as Charles Cross, he had an older sister called Emily Cross, the Maria, the mother, and Thomas Cross, the father, who was also a police officer. Now, if you've watched the House of Lechmere, you'll know that Thomas Cross put some false details down on the document. He put his age down as 36 because the kids would, I think Emily was 14, something like that. She was the older sibling. And I think, obviously if he's 26 and you haven't got a daughter of 14, have you? It doesn't happen. He's forged that, and I do believe it was a bigamous marriage because John Alan Lechmere, the father of the two children, was still alive. I do believe he abandoned them though, so I'm not so sure on it, to be honest. But I tend to, believe what I'm told about this whole situation. And the reason why I'm mentioning the sister and the census is because a lot of naysayers say that Charles Lechmere always called himself Cross. They refer to him as Cross in a lot of correspondence in all Lechmere related videos. And I'm thinking, what are you trying to do here? You're trying to deliberately deflect away from this Lechmere name so people don't know anything about him, so people don't start asking questions, you know what I mean? That's what comes across to me. And speaking of Cross, I put some facts before you, and then you ask me, do you think he used the name Cross? Did he do it regularly? Did he have any reason to? Right, because in 1869, tragically, his older sister Emily died. She was only 22 years old, so that must have been devastating for him. But on her death certificate, it said Emily Charlotte Lechmere. So this just goes to show that the kids were never officially crossed, were they? It wasn't an official marriage, it was a scam. Go forward another year, Charles Lechmere himself marries his sweetheart Elizabeth Bostock, and on the marriage certificate, all this information's come from the House of Lechmere. If you've not watched their channel, you need to do. On that marriage certificate, the groom's father is named as John Alan Lechmere. There's no signs of the name Cross anywhere. So, logically, has this man got reason to use the name Cross? I think not, unless he wants to do something particularly devious. If he ends up in any kind of scrape in his life, any bad situation, so that you use that name that was written down once, you know what I mean? What my mother was basically known as in the 1860s, because by the time of these murders, Maria Lechmere, she was known as Maria Fosdyke. She'd married again. So you tell me, what would be the logical reason for him using the name Cross other than to be devious? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, this is why I believe Lechmere did it. But if you believe someone killed Polly Nichols, like George Hutchinson or somebody, before Lechmere got there, and Lechmere was the one that did the disturbing, then you're entitled to believe that. But these things I've put across in this video, I'm sure should make you think. You know, you're going to be restricted in your movements, you're going to be red hot and really hot and sweaty, and you're not going to be able to see a damn thing if you're just propping the skirt up with your head. Which sounds a bit stupid, not the right way to go about something, if you ask me. This is Buckstrow. This is Unreal Engine 5. It's an absolutely fantastic program, and I'm really into it. And this is Charles Lechmere and Robert Paul checking out the dead body of Polly Nichols, the victim of the infamous Jack the Ripper, the first of the canonical 5, murdered by this man, Charles Alan Lechmere. In my opinion. Don't shoot me. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.